Hello, Scott Conway here. Welcome back. We are continuing with the introduction for the 4P 360 leadership. This is the foundation of the system itself. 4P 360 leadership. The 4P stands for 4 pillar. So there are 4 pillars of the 4P 360 system, and the 360 stands for 360 degree leadership. In 360 degree leadership, 360 degrees typically means leading down, which is the direction everyone thinks of leadership, leading across, that's leading your peers, and leading up, which is leading those who you are following, and how you do that effectively. But with the 4P 360 system, there are additional directions. And we're going to get to some of the bonus directions, and we're going to get to something incredibly powerful and fairly unique of the double O feature. So everyone is a leader. Now the reason I say everyone is a leader is because John Maxwell says leadership is influence. The Conway corollary from me, Scott Conway, is that influence is leadership. Anytime you walk into a place and your presence makes a difference, one way or another, for good or ill, you are leading. And the collective leadership creates a culture. Most people do this incidentally, even accidentally. If your presence or actions make a difference, you have influence and you are therefore a leader. And this means that pretty much everybody is a leader, at least at some point in their job, in their work, in their friendships, in their families, in their lives. And most people do make a difference. But the difference they make is largely incidental to what else they do. They're not doing it on purpose. They're not doing it with a plan. They're not doing it with a system. It's just sort of incidental to them going about their day-to-day lives and know however they do things. And not only is it incidental, it's often accidental. In fact, and this is a sad truth, sometimes the most powerful leadership we have, the most powerful influence we have, the biggest difference we make is negative. And why is that? It's because most people at our most passionate, reflect back on your last 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Try to think of the time that you were the most passionate, the most intense. Not just positively passionate, but negatively passionate. Do you get more happy or more sad? Do you get more excited or more angry? Which one tends to be more intense for you? And when you make a difference, say in your family, in your friendships, could be at work, where do you feel most intense? And most people find that that intensity tends to show up more with their negative emotions rather than their positive emotions. Now there's another unfortunate axiom, and that's negative is 4 times more powerful than positive. That means if you do something that hurts someone, that's going to have more of an impact than if you do something that honors someone. Now try to think about this physically. If every time you come near me, you get physically injured, that I'm one of those people, I don't pay attention to my surroundings, I turn around, I might elbow you accidentally in the nose, or I might go to shake your hand and I squeeze your hand too hard, maybe knowingly, maybe unknowingly, or I go to give you a hug and I always smash my forehead into your head. It's just something that always happens. How often are you going to want to be close enough to me that I might physically hurt you? I could be the nicest guy in the world, but if I'm the kind of clumsy that keeps getting you physically hurt, if I am unaware of what I'm doing when I go to squeeze your fingers instead of shaking your hand, you're going to start trying to avoid me. You might even like me as a person, but you will try to avoid me because being around me gets to be painful. And when you only have leadership incidentally or accidentally, when that's where your influence is showing up, it tends to most naturally, incidentally, accidentally show up in negative ways. Unless you're just a naturally positive person. But if you think about how most people, probably 4 out of 5 people, experience their negative emotions much more intensely than their positive emotions, and tend to express their negative emotions much more intensely than their positive emotions. That when you pass positive judgment on someone, you tell someone how awesome you think they are, how smart you think they are, how bright you think they are, and you can talk about specific situations where they did a fantastic job. Like you are one of our top team members. You did such a great job on this report that shows great research and good thinking, and this is what you do for us consistently. You are an amazing team member. How often does that come out passionately, more than when someone messes up? and now you're yelling at him, you're calling him on the carpet. This frustrates you, this annoys you. Even think about this in terms of your personal relationships, your friendships, even your romantic relationships. Where does the emotion, probably in 4 out of 5 relationships, tend to be more intense? Does it tend to get more intense when it's negative or more intense when it's positive? So this is part of why having a system is so important. 4P360 leadership is a system. 4P360 leaders have a system to organize their leadership to make a positive difference on purpose. So they build connection on purpose. They lift people up on purpose. They show honor and respect, and they connect on purpose. 4P360, 4-pillar, 360-degree leadership with bonus directions and the double O feature. The 4 pillars are, number 1, powerful. Number 2, practical. Number 3, principled. And number 4, positive. So what does it mean to have powerful leadership? Well, powerful leadership just means that the leadership works. So the leadership works not only to get people to do the things that they ought to be doing, but also it's powerful in the sense that it gets not just the job done, but it gets the job done in an effective way. It's not destructive, because that relates to some of the other things. Now, if you're an abusive leader, a negative leader, you could argue that that's powerful because it makes things happen. But is that the kind of leadership you want to be having? You might be able to lay a claim to power, but is it practical? And practical leadership means that there's a use for it. There's a place for it. There's a place where this kind of leadership belongs. There's situations where this will resolve the situation in a way that does not do collateral damage. So say, for instance, in a powerful way, I have a nuclear option. Now people say, well, nuclear, that's powerful. Well, maybe you might be able to make the argument that it's powerful. But is it practical? Because if you use the nuclear option, and so you're throwing out the baby with the bathwater, you're destroying the business in order to get your way, that's not very practical, is it? If you destroy your long term to fix the moment, that's really not very practical. If you create your largest global competitor to try to get this report in on the day you want it in, that's not very practical. If you are going to destroy a 3-generation business to win an argument, that's not very practical. And so powerful means it gets the job done. Powerful means that it works, and it works in a larger context. Practical means there's a use for it, and there's a use for it in a way that produces total outcomes that relate to what you actually want. The third pillar is principled. Now, principled means there's reasons why it works this way. Principled means not only do you have a specific tool that's a technique, you have the reasons why this tool works. I was working with a young leader who was struggling with this concept. He had to end a relationship with a business colleague, and he said it really didn't go well. He says the community he works in, it's a fairly small community. And so when you create a negative situation, someone really doesn't like you, well, they talk about how bad you are. And he was in another business relationship, and the results were kind of similar, and he's going to have to end this one. And he wanted to know, okay, you say you have this system of firing people, the system of ending or changing relationships that's supposed to end in a handshake and a thank you. And I have to tell you, the last time I tried to do something like that, it really didn't work. So he explained to me what it was he did, and I could see that he might have seen it as positive, but really all it was is not as negative as he was really feeling. But it really was kind of negative. I mean, I just asked him, so if I come to you and I say these things to you, and I reflected back to him what he had said to someone else, are you going to feel good about that, or are you going to be a little annoyed at that? And he had to admit, oh, okay, well, yeah. The way he was first evaluating it was the simple system of, well, I was this angry, and I only expressed that much of my anger. And I felt this upset at what he was doing, and I only expressed this much of the upset. Well, the thing is that the other guy was still annoyed. He still felt attacked. Why? Because he was attacked. He was only attacked a little as opposed to a lot, but he was still attacked. And he spoke in the network about this person and the way this person judged him and attacked him and called him incompetent and all these other things. So now he was going to have to do it again. Now you start getting a reputation in fairly small networks that two different people are now saying you are a problem. Guess how many people you're going to have working with you? Pretty close to zero. And he was going to have to move on and find someone else with this skill set in this fairly small network. And all we did is we took the exact same principle, because I expressed the principle to him, or how it worked in the normal technique. He said, well, that won't work for me because, it's already combative. It's already toxic. We're already in a really bad place, and, that's not going to work. Well, because it's principled, it's not a specific technique, it works on principles, we were able to take the technique and say, okay, here's step 1, step 2, step 3. We're just going to take the technique apart, apply the principles, and we're going to make this one step into 3 separate steps. And because it works on the principles, and we just divided it up so it goes more slowly, takes one step at a time, he said, even in this combative, toxic relationship, he said, I think that'll work. Even though his first inclination was he didn't want to think it was going to work at all. So that's principle. It works for a reason. It works because it works on principle, so you can adjust and adapt to any specific situation. Maybe you can do things faster, maybe you can do things slower, depending on the relationship. It adjusts slightly when you're going up as opposed to when you're going down or sideways. The last one is positive. So the first pillar is powerful, second is practical, third is principle. The last one is positive. Now, a positive has a couple of elements to it. One of them, of course, is positive as opposed to negative, meaning it lifts people up as opposed to tear people down. It connects the relationship forward, and it shows honor and respect rather than is spending your clout in the relationship. And there's a principle we call the Phileo bank account. John Maxwell's variation of it is having change in your pocket. And having this kind of emotional bank account is also a Stephen Covey concept. The Phileo bank account concept is a little bit more sophisticated, but one of the basic ideas here is when you have to have a negative interaction, you're burning points. Whatever your account balance is, you're burning points in the negative interaction. Well, what if you can avoid burning points? What if, in fact, you can have what would otherwise be a negative interaction and make it a positive experience, so it moves things forward, so it's helpful, so it's powerfully positive instead of intensely negative. So that's one element of positive. The other one is to focus on where you are going, not where you're not going. What you do want rather than what you don't want. So often, leadership boils down to calling someone into the office to tell them, this is going on and we can't have that. And it's all about what you don't want. But 360-degree leadership in the 4-pillar system means it needs to be positive. What is it you do want? What do you want it to look like? Not just what you don't want it to look like. The 360-degree leadership, we already talked about 360-degree leadership traditionally is leading down, the common direction of leadership, but leading across. How do you lead your peers? Well, just understanding leadership is influence and influence is leadership. If you can have influence across your organization to your peers, you are a leader. And leading up, if you can influence your leader, you are a leader. And if you are a very talented 4-pillar 360-degree leader, your leader can have an unlimited number of you on their team. If, on the other hand, you need to be more directly managed, more directly communicated, more directly controlled, more directly led, well, then there's only a limited number of people like that a leader can lead. But a good quality 4P 360 leader, you can have an unlimited number of those on your team and stuff gets done. Because one of the hardest things for a leader to have to do is get all the information and make the hard decision. Or make any decision. Because they have to get all the information. And that takes time and effort. But if you can show up with, here's the problem, here's some possible solutions, this is the one I recommend and why. And then it becomes a game of multiple choice. Like, okay, hey, it's a good recommendation. I like that one. Or maybe it's like, well, I like that one too. I need more information on that. As opposed to the leader having to gather all of the information themselves and having to make an independent decision and then issue orders and instructions and delegate pieces, that when you show up with a chunk of the answer already ready so that a lot of the work that might otherwise fall to the leader has already been done, It makes leading you that much easier. And leaders, the better the 4P360 leaders are underneath the leader, the more people the leader can have on their team. And the flatter an organization can be. But we have other directions. Remember I told you there were bonus directions. Because leadership is influence, influence is leadership. By using the 4P360 system, you can also lead diagonally down. Now, diagonally down means you're leading people that are under someone else's authority. So if you have someone in another division, you can have influence over there in the way they do things, the way maybe they interact with your division when you don't have line authority over them. You know, one way to think of it is how do you coach, counsel, and guide other people's kids? Another teacher's students. Another executive's division. Anytime that you interact with them, even indirectly through the people you are leading. Then there's diagonal up. How do you lead the boss of your peers? How do you have influence there that is powerful and practical and principled and, of course, positive? And using the 4P360 system, you can use the same system to lead up diagonally. So you can lead down, of course, and down diagonally. Lead people who aren't in your direct line of authority but are being led by others and build that relationship. Lead across, lead up diagonally, and lead straight up to your own leader. And then we have the 0-point leadership. The 00 feature of the 4P360 is 0-point leadership. And there's 0-point number 1 and 0-point number 2. 0-1 is self-leadership. The exact same principles apply. I use the same pillars. It has to be powerful. What will actually work with me? When I'm trying to get me to do something, what will work with me? It has to be practical. Is there a use for this? Is this going to do collateral damage? Is there going to be unintended consequence? So I need to lead myself in a powerful, practical way and a principled way. So I can adjust and I can adapt if things change in my life, if things change in my work, if things change in my home, and I need to make adjustments because it's principled. I can factor in the adjustments and I can adjust it as necessary based on the principle, so the technique can be a little bit different, and that's okay. And I want it to be positive. I want to self-lead in a positive way. In fact, self-leadership in a positive way is ultimately the key to having a good life. Some people self-lead themselves in a negative way. They call themselves names. You know, I want to go on a diet, and I'm fat, I'm ugly. You know, why would anyone even want to be around me or look at me or date me? And, well, you're miserable the whole time you're working on it. I mean, I've met people. There's this verse in the Bible that says to love your neighbor as yourself. And I've actually told some people, it's like, you know, there's this principle about loving other people the way you love yourself. Boy, am I glad you don't do that with me. I've seen the way you treat yourself. I wouldn't want to be treated that way. 4P360 means this goes in every direction, including 0-point leadership. You lead yourself the same way you would lead other people. And by applying the 4 pillars and the concepts and principles of 360-degree leadership with the bonus directions and the 00 feature, you can evaluate your self-leadership systems. And then the second 0 point, 02, is reverse leadership. Reverse leadership. Now what that means is I assume leadership responsibility for being led. So when other people are influencing me or attempting to influencing me, I run the same 4 pillars when other people are leading me, influencing me, as I do when I'm trying to influence others. I'm trying to help other people be more powerful in what it is they're doing, be more practical, be more principled, and be more positive. Not by telling them what to do, but by learning how to ask leading questions. So if someone tells me, well, I want you to make sure those people stop doing that. And I can talk to them. It's like, okay, so if they stop doing that, that would look like, and I paint a positive picture of what it would look like, and confirm with them, is that what you want? And then I help other people understand by asking questions the kind of information I want. And what that ends up doing is it teaches other people the kind of information to be giving you in order for you to get things done. And so that's reverse leadership. How to exercise leadership skill in helping other people have better leadership over you. To help your team know when they come to you, how they can be leading up to you by bringing you the kind of information you need, bringing you some alternatives, bringing you some potential solutions, bringing you recommendations, and why that's their recommendation. That's reverse leadership. You're helping someone else better influence you, better lead you. And that's part of the brilliance of the 4P360 proprietary leadership system. So where does all this come from? It builds ultimately out of a couple of key principles. One foundational principle is reality is more important than anything we believe. If reality is more important than anything we believe, that has built into it an understanding that what is actual reality and what I believe it to be have the possibility, even the probability, of being at variance. So that helps me learn to maybe ask some more questions, to be a bit more respectful, to be looking at what's actually happening instead of what I think ought to be happening. I might believe this works, but if the reality is showing me it's not really working, then I need to adjust my belief. I might believe it's practical, but if I say, okay, but we're getting a lot of collateral damage here, so I may need to adjust my belief over its practicality to adjust to the reality of the 360-degree feedback I might be getting here. I might believe that it's working on principles and is value-based, but I need to be open to the possibility that others may not see it the same way. And same thing with positive. That guy thought he was positive, but he had a very negative impact. When it was reflected back to him, because it's part of 360, turn it around, look at it from the other side, he realized it wasn't nearly as positive as he thought it was. It was just less negative than he was really feeling. And that he ended up burning a bridge that's dangerous for him to burn, because that bridge burned has a chance of lighting other bridges on fire. And if he had burned 2 bridges, especially once he hit 3 bridges, he would have been done in his community. And he understood that. And he wanted the answer, so he didn't light the second bridge on fire and burn the second bridge. Another huge one that derives off of the first is all principles must be consistently applied. That if it truly is a principle, it should be consistently applied. The same principles you apply down should work sideways. If they really work, they work. They should work up. They should work diagonal. They should work upward diagonal. They should work with me. They should work with others coming to me. That if it's a principle, it's a principle. If it works this way, it should always work this way. If it only works down, that means I'm relying on authority in order to lead. Well, that means I'm a commander. I have to have power in order to lead. I don't build my personal power by having positive influence. That I have to be given power in order to make something happen. Well, you can look at your life that way and realize, well, that only works down. That doesn't work down diagonal. That doesn't work lateral. That doesn't work upward diagonal. It certainly doesn't work leading up, because other people have power. So when you begin to realize in this 360-degree leader with the bonus directions of the 00 feature, applying reality is more important than anything we believe, that you have to always be open. Okay, the reality of what really is going on might be different than what I already know. And I have to be willing to adjust what I already know based upon the actual reality that is. And all principles must be consistently applied. If it works, it should always work. And it should work in every direction. That should be the rules in every direction. And that's what 4P360 leadership does. 4P360 leadership is a uniquely self-consistent leadership system because you use the same concepts, the same pillars, the same filters leading down when you have the power as you do down diagonal, lateral, upward diagonal, or upward, because the principles are consistent. When you're leading yourself and when you're helping others lead you, the principles are consistent because the principles are the principles. And that makes it uniquely self-consistent. It's a comprehensive leadership toolbox. Because we take any given tool, we can show where it most obviously applies, like the tool technique of firing someone and having a firing event end with a handshake and a thank you, and apply that same principle in every direction, where you have to change the nature of a relationship. Maybe remove someone from your team, maybe fire someone, maybe quit a job, maybe quit a project, maybe get off a committee. That it applies in the same way in every direction. And because you can use it that way, one technique actually is 7 techniques. That one tool has 7 applications. And you can use it in any of the 7 directions. And so when you collect even just a handful of tools, if every leadership tool you get, you can multiply by 7. I mean, imagine the size of your toolbox now. And there is a significant toolbox here. And then you get to multiply it by 7 because you can apply it in every direction. It's a leadership philosophy. So every tool you learn, every technique you learn, you run it through the 4-pillar system, you run it through the 360 system, and you can evaluate and adapt any tool you learn from anyone on any aspect of leadership. You can take anything that you learn about goal setting and you can apply it to leadership. You can learn anything you apply to change your own life, to parent, to lead in your organization, something you wish your leader would do, and you can run it through the 4-pillar 360 system, and you can develop a series of 7 tools, or a tool with 7 applications for exactly what it is you learn using the 4P 360 proprietary leadership system. So that's why this is here. This is why it's so important. And this is why it is a unique system. This is also a proprietary system, so you do not have permission to teach it to others, but you certainly have my permission and my encouragement to use the 4P 360 system in your own life and in your own leadership. My name is Scott Conway, and this has been 4P 360. Thank you.